and welcome into yet another live stream. Today we will be playing Minecraft. Yep, that's what we'll be playing. It's been a while since I said we will be playing ... Usually been doing walking streams recently. Hi the Singularity, hi the Ninja, hi the Stump, hi the hi, welcome. Yeah, I need a bit of a break. Technically the best use of my time in a way would be to just code the graphical engine, but oh my goodness. I left mid-fall. Well, that's a very make it move, I do have to say. That is certainly a very make it move. That lovely pond. Oh, I like this so much. Oh, this is great. I love this. And Timon's in game. Wait, why is Timon in game? It's tempting to do something silly. Well, I mean, it's hard not to do something when presented with such a... Why are the command blocks in here? What the... mod abuse? Time alone, no. Hi, the Null, hi. I leave time alone. But Ninja, this is a morality test. And I am full on ready to fail. Okay, what will we need? What should we do? What should we do? Something fun, something silly. Elytra. I have one idea. Damn it. There we go. Micro abuse more 5% you got. You know what? You are right. We're doing the mod abuse punishment. Attribute scale base set 0.92. There we go. Mod abuse punishment. Each time Timon abuses the mod powers, I'm gonna just make him shot. I love the zero memory. I had to choose between Factorio and Minecraft, and you chose Factorio. Can't blame you. It's an addictive game ahead. I haven't started playing that game because I know that I won't be able to stop. Not quite licensed yet. That's the thing you can do. Apparently, yeah. Apparently, in the new Minecraft, you can just do that. You can just make things and people short or big. Also, another thing you can do would be attribute scale base set 1.5, for example. Oh, hold on. Let me make this bigger so that Timon will look even smaller in comparison. There we go. Punishment for mod abuse. Progressively making everything. Progressively making everything slightly bigger and making Timon slightly smaller. Okay, we can't have him drop down there because then I'm not sure we could get him out. We'll need to be careful, but I mean, let's be real. We probably won't be all that much. We could make some instant health potions, I suppose. That could be convenient. There. Now, what we like to do is pull a bit of a jest, a bit of a prank, in which... Oh, this is gonna be rough. What was this? Make it at the end. What port is this? I don't know this base. Oh, Quasar, alright. For a second it looked like Stumps, but Stump has a small end, like a more detail-oriented thing. Alright, let's go for Timon. And what we would like to do is... we could push him over there. Like across. Hide Bennett. I don't know why the wee prank makes me giggle. Alright. Yeah, I think this could work. This is good enough. Like this. There we go. Make you all qualifications for the live voice chat. The red Patreon rank. Those are them's. Money, yeah. Patreon only server, yes this. Hey, nothing's free nowadays, am I right? You dirty commies, you communists. Oh, so you want equality, huh? No, only inequality here. There we go. Right. There's a tiny bit of shoving. Listen, it's gonna be worth it, right? It ain't easy, I get it. Listen, it's hard work, you know? I always troll people like that. It thinks easy. No, it's hard work, you know? It really is. It ain't easy.
Also, the unpaid intern
Hi,
allows you to voice chat.
Hi, the Tefta.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. I was actually gonna ask you before starting the stream if tomorrow you would, in the morning for you, I'm just not gonna sleep, if you'd have the time to voice chat on Discord.
Sure, of course.
I have a technical question to ask you. I unfortunately can't share on stream.
Sounds epic. Yeah, for sure. I look forward to it.
No, I've gotta be honest, because you helped me so much. It's a secret, the video that I'm working on, but you helped me so much with that video already. Just by, as much as I know like a fair bit about chemistry, quantum mechanics, these sort of things, the practical stuff I really struggle with because I just don't have much experience there. There you go. By the way, you want to join the Minecraft server?
Yeah, sure.
It's the same one as 2 months ago, actually.
Yes.
I haven't been playing on it much because I've been busy doing everything else in existence possible. How are things going for you?
Good. I didn't feel as bad joining because it looked like you're actually relaxing and not doing something important.
Even if I am doing something, I don't do important stuff, alright? I may do busy stuff, but I don't do important stuff. My alternative for the stream was I'm making my graphical engine again.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because you were talking about it in some of the streams, so that makes
I'm cool. Making it because this time I won't do the typical thing where I just get too ambitious. This time I'm doing it for a semi-practical reason, where basically I want to make a couple of videos about simulations. So the first one will be simulating evolution, like explaining a couple of misconceptions about evolution. And for that, I wanted to make my own simulating software. I could do it in Python, completely fine, but I also want to give myself a bit of a challenge, do it in C. And this time it might genuinely be a graphical engine that is usable, which would be nice.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
you make tons of content off of that too, because since you make the engine itself, you could even have that be videos while you're doing it. So that
actually, yeah, the thing is, for the engine, I want to carry on with the computer science series. The next video of the computer science series will be just the information versus interpretation. That would be That'll be the main theme, where basically like the information doesn't matter, the way you read it, the blah blah blah, stuff like this. And then I would carry on explaining eventually registers, going more and more in depth. And eventually I would build my way to C, and I would be able to explain how the graphical engine works exactly, which would be nice.
That's awesome. That sounds cool. I actually wrote the longest script I've ever written for a YouTube video.
Really?
And it's like 20. Yeah, it's like 17 or 20 pages.
Oh, that is a lot. That is crazy lot.
Yeah, because I had a complex idea and I needed to flesh it out. So like I was up till 3 a.m. the other day just typing it on a non-internet connected device. And then I decided to expand it, and I finally got like 27 pages or 20 some odd pages.
I just don't think you understand just how much of an insane that is. My biggest script I've ever made was 40 pages, and I didn't even make that video. That was the largest one. The quantum mechanics one, the hour-long one, I think it had 16, maybe 14. 20 pages is really crazy lot.
Yeah, I probably did it wrong, but
I don't think there's a way to do it wrong. Come on. I don't think there's a way to do it.
It might be too much work to finish it, but I think it's good enough that I want to actually.
Actually, there is another way you can think about it. Yeah, like you can think about it in terms of, oh, there might be too much work to finish it, but at the same time, there also might be too much work to shorten it. Writing a short, like making a script shorter, also takes a bunch more effort than actually making it larger lot. Oh, hi, the Timon. Hi, what are you doing? Well, Timon, curious of you to join. Hi, how you doing? I hope you don't mind. I've just been busy doing stuff. Good validation, sorry, good. New Princeton translation of Capital, but it's pretty expensive. My parents respond pretty negatively me having Max Litra. I think it's funny, Noel, that you want you want to buy a book about economics, but your main concern is that it's too expensive. I think there's a certain amount of irony there that's pretty comical. All right, there we go. Do you have thorns in your armor?
So where are you guys at?
Oh, I am. I'm coming out in a second. Give me a sec.
Because I'm like in a frozen lake right now by the spawn point. I think I'm on your server. I don't actually.
Yeah, I think you are. Okay, because I was just busy shoving Timon like really far away from where he was actually standing. Okay, the amount of effort I went through just to give Timon a minor inconvenience. Okay, hold on. Let me. So I'm assuming you will be near 0-0. I actually don't have all that many things, because I myself mostly rely on stealing things from other people. I mean, taking things. Could you tell me your coordinates?
I forgot how to do that.
F3?
F3. Okay. I am at... Oh, 729, 437 east. 729, 473.
Alright, so this way. Now I'm on my way.
Isn't that like right where you are?
Ish, kind of. A lot has happened. 7, so it should be this way, if I'm not mistaken. That's quite far away, actually. And I don't remember where it is places. There's a community hub that Itty made, which is made specifically for just going there and stealing items. And this
Okay.
does look like a frozen lake. Oh,
Yeah.
this place.
Oh, but it says, oh, but the east where that number is. Sorry. F3. That last number for me is 140,000. 140 million. Oh, okay. That might be it.
I'm sorry. Hold on. 140. Whoa.
Yeah. So where's the coordinates at? Like on yours?
X, Y, Z. Okay,
XYZ. There we go. Sorry. I'm 3563. I apologize.
Okay. No, it's fine. With the 140 million, you scared me for a second, honestly.
Yeah. I just see these numbers on my screen. I haven't played Minecraft.
I mean, it is a lot of information. I have no idea what half of it is. The CEP, I don't know.
Yeah. It probably makes sense to somebody.
Hopefully. There's one value that, you know, some developer 10 years ago added to the game, and everyone's been scared to remove it ever since. All right, yeah, here you are. So basically, if you come with me, I can take you to civilization.
Okay.
Where there are things.
Oh, can we fly or something?
I have a singular elytra, singular flying thing.
Cool.
Is it all right?
No. I was just curious.
It's a bit of a pickle because for some reason my mind just cannot comprehend the numbers on the server and I never remember where anything is. But I'm pretty certain... Hold on. This is simple. I sometimes forget I can just... There are other people on the server. I also thought maybe about playing Satisfactory. It's been a while since I got to it in any way.
Oh yeah. I've been playing the same game and I'm almost toward the end. I have like the last space.
Oh, then never mind. I was gonna ask you if you'd like to play some with me, but I know how annoying it is when you're close to getting something large and satisfactory, and then someone just pulls you away with, "Hey, would you like to play my thing instead?"
Well, it actually doesn't bother me. Like the game is pretty fun, and
it's really fun.
Like, I usually listen to podcasts while I'm playing it. Like I feel like I don't just want to listen to a podcast, so I'll put on that game. It's epic. Oh, there we go. Lights.
There is lights, but I don't know which way. I mean, eventually, if we go too far one way, there should be a portal there, which should. There is okay. That over there. Hold on, let me just fly around to see it for a bit. Okay, I have a plan.
Okay.
Not a good one. Negative 500, 200. Or we could just follow the... No, actually, I have a better plan. Follow me. Oh, better is subjective. I have a different plan.
Luckily, they're all fighting you.
I'm pretty certain because I'm going first, then they just focus on me. This is good, actually. It is what we want. Alright, so... My plan is, I'm gonna fly to the top of the farm. Okay. Then I'm going to throw down my elytra and my fireworks, and then you're gonna fly after me. So, position yourself, like, under it. Alright.
Okay.
I'm dropping my elytra and fireworks. It should be in the water on the side closer. I don't know if you can see it.
No.
Alright, actually, we should probably do it backwards now that I think about this. I know I did it this way. Alright. So...
they said they could hear the scream. You can just ask whatever you want.
Damn it, why are you typing in blue, you mod abuser? Okay, so... Hold on. You see this column of netherrack right here in the middle of the... Alright, take this. And when you're in the air, spacebar, like put it on when you're in the air, spacebar to turn it on, and oh, there, and then the rockets when you use rockets with, yeah, exactly. I also gave you some rockets that when you use them, then that accelerates you real quick.
Oh, okay. So what do you do again? How do you fly? Double jump?
Yeah, double jump, and then you can see your camera like switches to a different. There we go. Yeah, so
okay.
double jump, and then right away use the rockets I gave you.
Oh, okay. So that just normal click. Got it. And it's normal click to use the rockets?
Right click should be.
Right click, okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Oops.
And then
okay.
And then up there there's like a tiny platform. Really high up.
Okay.
Be careful though, because it is. Yeah.
Well, I did it. I got up there successfully.
Oh wait, you died up there?
Yeah.
Oh no, no, I can't fly. Damn it. Oh
yeah,
no.
I died up there.
I can't fly up there. Oh, it's fine. I just need to build up.
Oh, that's smart. You can just take that.
Yeah, I'm just building up. Even if I have the no, I'm already building up time. It's fine. But if
yeah,
if
so I slammed into the pillar and then I landed on the small little thing and that's what killed me.
It usually is how it goes with Elytras. We really need a nether portal in the... Timon, could you be there and bring me like 10 blocks of obsidian and a flint and steel to the 00 coordinates? Because it's not the first time we're in this pickle. And honestly, it's kind of wild that it's taken us such a long time to make a nether portal there. How much obsidian where? 10 obsidian in the 00 coordinates, you know, right where the spawn is.
So I can't see my inventory now, like at the bottom, how you see your health and stuff.
Did you press F1 by accident?
F1. There we go. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Alright, I got the elytra back. It's all good. Also, I got more netherite blocks out of it than I put in there, which doesn't really make sense, considering how for each block mined I was putting one block below me. But hey, I just made some netherite blocks out of nothing. Physicists wouldn't be happy, but what do they care?
Yeah. Now I know where I'm at.
I'm still looking for things. Oh. There we go.
Yeah, how have you been? Time no talk.
How have I been? I've been busy this time. Proper busy. Proper good busy. I'm making one video every 5 days now.
Awesome. Wow.
That is a lot. That is a lot. That is a non-insignificant amount of videos.
So how many hours does that take you?
Well, each one is around 100 hours. That's usually... I mean, I am parallelizing, so at any point I am working at least 3 videos, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to, right? Render one, script the others. But yeah, usually on any day I work like 12 to 16 hours. Actually, this is one of the first streams where I genuinely need a break. I should be coding the graphical engine, but I just simply cannot.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go mad if I do.
Well, it's good you took a break, because that's important.
Yeah, I really need that more often. Now, that is a fine kind of walk. That's always neat.
Yeah.
Only there's
I'm
more
actually
than-
going to be mimicking you, because I just recorded the audio for my video, the hour and 5 minute one, and I'm just going to do images and animations.
Oh yeah, my style is spreading. If you need any help, don't hesitate to let me know, because I genuinely am quite useless when it comes to this whole thing. So at any point, if I could give any advice.
Have you thought about using non-cycles engine in Blender just for
The
quick
Eevee one?
animations?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
But funny enough, it doesn't really...
Yeah,
It
that's what I was gonna ask.
actually doesn't really matter all that much, because... Okay, first of all, follow me, because we might as well go in the meantime. It's actually way closer than I expected, so that's on me. It actually doesn't really matter all that much, because each time I render an animation, that's 30 frames, which on 8 samples, that's usually like 2 or 3 minutes. And that actually lets me stop and have a quick think about what the next animation will look like. Which means that once the animation finishes rendering, I can just make the next animation sequence right away, because I already knew what it was going to be. I also script in the meantime. I don't think Cycle is that much of a time loser for me. I mean, Eevee would be quicker, I suppose, but I don't know if that's a good way to optimize the time. I might try it. I mean,
yeah, I was just thinking, I wasn't sure, but I am going to use that trick that you showed me about remapping an image onto an object for scene transitions.
Oh yeah, I love I really do love
that.
these.
That looks super cool. But yeah, I have to make a little house with a window and a sandbox. That's my first animation I'm making. But I have some assets. They're, the built-in Blender plugin. It's like $20 a month, and it gives you a whole lot of assets.
I would also recommend CG Trader. It's a website where you can... Yeah, actually, let me send you a link. There are plenty of websites that give you models, but CG Trader is just the best one I have found. So, hold on. They're really nice because actually surprisingly rare. When you look up something on CG Trader and you click the free button, it's actually giving you it's actually only looking up the free models. You would be surprised how often for other websites, when you look up free, it still gives you the priced ones, which is ridiculous in my opinion.
Oh yeah. It's like they still want you to know what you're missing.
Yeah, exactly. The free button. I specifically am searching for just free things. Why? I'm not gonna pay for anything. If I would pay for something, then I wouldn't look up by free stuff. Although I have, it's actually kind of funny for my entire YouTube thing. Kind of the only thing I got, the only thing I paid for was the chemistry molecule generator for organic chemistry. If you like anything, I'm pretty certain you can just take it. Sometime I won't mind.
Okay. Might just take the iron axe.
There is a lot. Timon is a hoarder. Okay, you come like that, so I can't hear and I can't move.
They're all empty for me.
Most of them are just empty. Or do you mean all of them are empty? Do you mean literally all of them?
Oh no, I'm actually pressing the wrong button. I'm pressing language.
All right.
That's how long it's been. Okay. Broken sword. There we go.
I like how we just went into Timon's place, and me as a gracious host, just letting you know, oh, you can take anything you want from these. Aren't my things, just oh yeah, take whatever you want, free of charge.
I took pickaxe, a shovel, and 2 buckets.
All right, now I'd imagine you'd like to set up shop or build something somewhere.
Yeah. Where is the location?
Which location? Because
So, are we expanding? How big is this area? Just this house?
Your food actually have this. I don't know. I'll be honest with you, Tefta. This is actually not really my place, so just whatever you want, just take. I'm certain Timon won't mind. Right, Timon? Timon, where can Tefta set up stuff? Oh, I need to crouch to be on the same. There we go.
Got pink trees.
Oh yeah, they're added in the new updates. That's not really nice. Why are they still chasing us? You silly geese. Alright, there we go. It was broken, unfortunately. There we go. Alright, now all we need to do is just wait till we start some kind of science discussion going, and then it's really gonna get rolling. That's how all these streams go.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about science in the sense of germ theory in my script, and how the person who coined washing of the hands died in a mental institution. Kind of interesting. Was never vindicated for telling doctors to wash their hands.
Oh yeah, I do remember that, where it was just, as a theory, it was considered ridiculous for a really long time. Until we realized that people just stopped dying like crazy. Fun thing about homeopathy, actually, and I know if you're familiar with homeopathy.
Yeah.
So the reason why it got so popular, the reason why it is so popular, is because normally it wouldn't really take off in any way. Like medicine would be so much better. But the reason why it got so popular is because back when it was created, medicine sometimes was just actively harming people because of the extreme treatments, and homeopathy doing nothing was just better. That's kind of funny in my opinion. How back then medicine was so terrible that doing nothing was just a much better treatment for people. Glad we changed at least a bit since then.
It's everything is super complicated. But I was actually trying to talk about the Overton window. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh
term.
Yes, I am familiar with the Overton window. The way I got familiar with it, actually, funny, I don't know, the quick tangent. The way I got familiar with it is because Robert Miles mentioned it in his video when it comes to AI safety, where basically, first, the concept of AIs taking over the world became ridiculous, but now because more and more experts are raising the alarms, the Overton window is widening, and now being worried about AI safety is no longer a ridiculous idea. That's actually, so I don't know exactly where you're going with this, but I actually got familiar with the Overton window with a very, I imagine, kind of similar like the video way.
Yeah. Well, AI, it's completely the same. But what I was just pointing out, that society and institutions are not inherently incentivized toward truth, but rather they are a part of a social contract and a mechanism of the Overton window, in which certain things are stigmatized just so we can have the luxuries that we have. So we give up just raw survival for a social contract, the acceptance of kind of using the Overton window, and the limitations of our systems. So it was an observation I was trying to make, that it's interesting that science as an institution isn't incentivized toward truth. Believe it or not, you can easily say.
I mean, this goes for every single like social institutions. For example, if you're trying to become an elected official, you don't want to be you don't want to be a good person. The best strategy isn't to be a good person. The best strategy is to have people think that you're a good person. If you're trying to be a company, the best strategy isn't to make the best products, only to have people think that you make the best products. And if you're trying to achieve something through science, then the best strategy isn't to do science, only it is to have people think that you're doing science, which is exactly. Every single social related thing unfortunately falls to that. because tricking people is just more efficient strategy. Tricking people into something is a more efficient strategy than doing that something.
So what's funny about that is that we can't use the general consensus of science for if we're just strictly after the truth. And actually your pursuits might be in, if you're literally looking for the truth, if there is an objective truth, you would actually search not necessarily into institutions and what they believe, but with a different lens. So
Yeah, I mean,
then I kind of broke it down into how to have a lens. Like, you know, we all have worldviews. What is a worldview? What's like a mental sandbox that we can do and to attempt to take off our own lens or our own worldview?
yeah, but the nice thing is the pure arguments, when you're like on, they do kind of avoid that, because the entire problem there is the social contract, right? So basically, if you're trying to have people believe something, then having them believe that thing is much more efficient strategy than that thing being true. However, that's only if you want someone to believe something. If you want your argument to be logical, for example, that's a different requirement. And so in science, there is a way to make like perfectly logical arguments. The only problem is that it takes a lot of effort, and most people really often aren't satisfied with the answers, because the answers won't be like, oh yeah, this is 100% true, this is 100% false. Only the answers would be probably more like, this is 74% true, this is 21% false, and the rest is the possibilities in between. So there is a possibility. The only but obviously it takes a lot more effort, because you need to define everything perfectly, which already by itself is just basically impossible. But then you would need people to agree on everything and so on and so forth. It is a problem that's, I wouldn't really say solvable, but it is amendable in a way. There's hope.
Yeah, but what's also interesting, but like stigma is there for a reason, right? So you want to stigmatize people that torture other people, like, because that's a part of the social contract. You want to stigmatize stealing because, you know, companies want to sell stuff, and we can't exist in a system with certain things if we don't have this social contract. So what's interesting, which I'm trying to point out, is that it's not like some conspiracy that our institutions aren't aligned with the truth. It's just, because
the natural result.
That's not what they're. Exactly. So if you see people that are stigmatizing things, you should be weary of that, right? And so if you try to look at objective truth, you might not want to do that through the scientific consensus, let's say. I think, you know, you have to think outside of the box, maybe use some mind tools or whatever.
In my opinion, if you want to find, first of all, in my opinion, I don't think that truth exists, and I think like truth is one of these concepts that our minds like make up to make sense of things. So, for example, in my opinion, there are a lot of concepts which just straight up don't exist, but it's just our human brains finding patterns with very loose definitions. And truth is one of those. Another one would be existence, and so on and so forth. Like, we want to say that something could be true or false, but like, what is truth, right? That I imagine I spoiled the title of one of the videos. What is truth? And so, in my opinion, if we're trying to approximate truth, then the best way to do it would be through science. However, science and scientific consensus is different. Scientific consensus is what you use when you just don't have the time to do science. So obviously no one can be an expert in everything. If you want to take some kind of, for example, if you've got cancer, you want to get some kind of treatment, then you would rather rely on the scientific consensus rather than spend all the years studying cancer yourself to verify. So there is a difference between scientific consensus and science.
Yeah, and so you would want to use science as a useful tool in searching for the truth. I think, you know, that's accurate. But also what's interesting is like you couple that with the fact that probably half of what we know now we call facts are false. And we won't know which ones until maybe 100, 200 years from now.
Yeah,
so it's interesting.
So that's precisely
it's not like solipsism, because if you go to purely scientific, like you can't prove anyone else exists. But, you know, since we have these social contracts in a more abstract or a pulled back concept, we know that half of our society thinks things are true, but those things are false. And that's fascinating. And like it can be kind of earth shattering when you realize this, because this is, I think, something that's a realization that many people come to if you're being logical. That's what I'm trying to argue.
But could you repeat that last thing? I missed it. The last sentence.
So half of the facts that we have are most likely false.
I would even say more than half, probably.
Probably, yeah. But just based off of the book, The Half-Life of Facts, yeah, they're saying that at any given moment, half of the facts are incorrect. So us saying certain things with such confidence is quite hubris and arrogant. That's why I think that we need a lot more humility in science. And so if any scientist is saying that, that's a hardcore skeptic of, doesn't matter what they're a skeptic of, if they aren't able to point out a flaw in science, then they are probably just a bad skeptic. Because a true scientist would know this fact. They would, epistemology. They would understand that, fundamentally we can't prove anything. Like the hard problem, we don't even know what consciousness is.
Exactly. The thing is, in the way I view science is not really, as I mentioned before, like I don't see science as pursuit of truth. I see it as just models to predict the future. So when you have a model, you're not really looking, when you have a model, let's say relativity, for example, you're not really assuming that relativity is the correct model of the universe and that's how the universe works. Instead, what you do is you say that relativity just predicts the future well, and that's, you don't have to worry about it being untrue, because you don't say that it predicts the future perfectly. You're just saying that it predicts the future best out of all the models we currently have, which is I pardon my hypocrisy, but it is true. We don't really have a better model than relativity for like long range alternative to classical mechanics, and that's why we use it for GPS and stuff like that. However, I don't think that physicists think of relativity as true, at least most of them, from what I've seen, simply because if relativity is true, they wouldn't have a job. Remco, physicist here, was studying quantum mechanics, basically where I learned all my quantum mechanics from. And the joke of the server is that Remco is on an eternal pursuit to find the graviton, the hypothetical particle for gravity. So basically, in the standard model, there are four fundamental interactions: gravity, electromagnetism, weak and strong. And weak, strong, and electromagnetism all have their own carry particles. The only one that doesn't is gravity. And that's the big, theory of everything, where you want everything to be relative, you want everything to be quantized, and you want gravity to be there in the mix. These are the three things required for the theory of everything. And so that's why physicists, at least I would say the real scientists in here, I would say they all should understand that fact, that obviously models in physics aren't the objective truth, simply because they are provably imperfect. This is not even a matter of questioning. We know they are imperfect. And if something is imperfect, then it cannot be the truth by its very definition. So I would say that the bigger problem there is the misalignment between what people consider to be. It's basically the whole misalignment of scientific consensus versus science. When something is being sold as science without it actually being science, or when something is being sold as more confident than it actually is, which also happens, which is just another. To be fair, my view is extremely biased. I am my entire personality is just science, so my view is extremely biased. But as I already mentioned, I think that science is by itself cannot produce wrong answers. The only wrong answers you can get is when you use the wrong science, or incorrectly use science. And so in this case, I do believe that is just a classic example of people using a good tool because the thing is, tools aren't inherently good or bad. They're just the thing I often say, how there's no difference between tools and weapons. Weapons are just tools with the only difference between a tool and a weapon is the intent to use it. But that doesn't really change the underlying mechanics of any kind of tool. So in this case, this is basically the difference between science being a very useful tool versus science being a weapon, when it's just used for people to mislead most of the time. Just come here to sleep for me to click in the bed right in the moment. Yes, I did, actually. I needed the daytime. But yeah, that's why I feel like what Milo has to say. I always mention it whenever you join it. There's always where the conversation is going in the end. Always what happens. I really like Milo's approach to it, where Milo is actually blaming a lot. Okay, I don't want to put too many words in his mouth, so instead I'm just gonna say that I agree with it, and I'm gonna give my version of it, which is that I believe that all of the conspiracy theories that we consider dangerous aren't a fault of people being dumb, as a lot of people would claim. I think they are solely the fault of science and science communication. So basically,
and I would argue that it's actually just there's probably a lot of truth to conspiracy theories. Like, I don't know which ones you're talking about. Not
no,
crazy
because what I
ones,
mean,
no,
I think
even
let
I
me
don't
explain
like
what I mean.
even Milo. But yeah, but I'm just saying that they are a product of the consensus science. They don't look to consensus science, and the stigma that Milo brings to it is kind of making fun. Now, a lot of those people are stupid, right? They fall for something, and you can go off the deep end because you don't actually have a foundation in science. Like, I do believe that science is a way to get to the objective truth if objective truth exists. But scientific institutions are not a measure of the truth and not incentivized for it.
That is true.
So if you say that, sure, that this theory, and you make fun of it, you are actually doing the social thing. Like, that is not a logical argument making fun of someone.
I see
right? So
your point there, but
down.
I see your point there, but there's a difference between. I really like Milo. I really dislike Professor Dave Explains. I don't know if you've heard of him. Professor Dave Explains.
No.
I've seen his videos popped up on my feed so many times, and I have never clicked on any of them, no matter the topic, out of a moral stance, simply because his thumbnails are just... His thumbnails and titles... The titles are stuff like, 10 arguments to obliterate, like, flat earthers or stuff like this. Where he's just so
I have a good way to
disrespectful
measure
it.
right? So this is my personal filter. If the person who is a debunker is able to say, this thing actually has merit, or vice versa, and that will show, because there's some conspiracy theories that are true. Like, some of them have to be true.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Epstein didn't kill himself, right? But so we know that it's like kind of a statistical impossibility. So if a person is just debunking things and that's all that they do, and they're not pointing out things that are actually have merit, then I question their intent. Like, why are you just debunking? If that's the only thing that you do and you're good at, you are probably going to bias yourself more and more. The more you spend time just on one side, the more you're going to just adjust your improper alignment towards unhealthy skepticism.
Okay.
Is my point. Same thing with someone that believes all these conspiracy theories equally. So good scientists or a good investigator should actually have a track record of both, debunking something and saying that something has merit or, evidence.
Okay, so
If it's just
in defense
one-sided,
of
I
Milo,
don't know.
in this case, because I really like him, so I need to defend.
Yeah.
That is true that in his videos, he does really often make fun of people. However, I remember when he was responding to one person, responding to response, he made two separate videos, one on his main channel and the second one, which was like his raw, unfiltered response. Where, one of them was just like the comical big video that he scripted. The other one was just the unfiltered one that he made right away after seeing it. And the unfiltered one, he was so much more, like, you wouldn't expect it. You would think it would go the other way. But in the unfiltered one, he was actually much more polite and careful. Simply because he didn't want to seem disrespectful. In his main videos, he does make a lot of jokes and like make fun of people, but at one point he did say that, oh yeah, I do make a lot of these jokes and I'm sorry for it, but I want these videos to be funny. This isn't meant to be an attack on you, only this is meant to be, my job. Right here I am trying to make science videos on YouTube and trying to make them funny. And Milo also does make a lot of videos that aren't debunking and are just about archaeology, just with other findings and such. But what I meant when I said that I think the reason why conspiracy, default for dangerous conspiracy theories is with science communication is simple. I specifically mean dangerous, because I do believe that if science communication was better, then there would be no conspiracy theories, because all the conspiracy theories right now would just do it as a form of science. Like, that's pretty simple. For example, I don't know, vaccines, right? I am, in this case, it's tricky to give an example because conspiracy theories, like by their very definition, will be controversial to say that they're either true or false. So it's hard for me to give an example because it would be really convenient for me to give an example. Oh yeah, so let's take that obviously false conspiracy theory, but I mean, then I would just be demolishing myself.
There was a conspiracy theory for, I think, the Vietnam War, where the United States government said that a non-military vessel was attacked upon, and that's what started the Vietnam War. I'm pretty sure. Of course, somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. But what ended up happening is documents came out to prove that it actually was a military vehicle and slightly provoked. So it was a complete lie. And another thing about the Iraq War that I do believe this is common knowledge, that the reporter that said there were weapons of mass destruction, which there actually wasn't, literally said that there was only one point, and they kind of admitted that they just wanted to go to war for one reason or another. So these were conspiracy theories, right, that have been later proven to be true. But if that's helpful, I don't know if that's helpful if you're looking for examples.
I mean, okay, that's a good one. Let's go over this.
Fact that aren't, you can do flat earthers or whatever, I guess. Right?
Okay, so I am gonna do flat. I just really want to be careful with flat earthers because I genuinely feel bad for them. Like, the thing is, I think that science. I really don't like science being weaponized. It's my whole thing, with science and religion. I think that science and religion, you shouldn't mix the two together because you'll end up with an argument that's neither science nor religious. But just because you shouldn't mix them together doesn't mean you should insult religion with science, because that's idiotic as well. So I just genuinely...
I think that's the whole social contract, right? So the reason why I made this video is to point out to people that the reason why science doesn't investigate certain things might actually be to maintain the status quo of our luxuries. Not right, like for example, non-human intelligence. Let's say we do have a crash craft that's able to tap into 0-point energy. This is extremely dangerous information, right? To literally be able to have vast amounts of energy. So you would not want this information to be released out, and in fact, you wanted to stigmatize it and not have anyone do this in their home, because that means that anyone, let's say this nuclear reactor that we're making is very easy to build, then anyone with this information could destroy the world, quite literally, or start a nuclear war. So there are many cases, and the same thing with you want to stigmatize things. So I think the reason why people are making fun of is because it's an actual defense mechanism for a society, not for the pursuit of truth. So if you are an actual person that desires to pursue the truth, you are not going to care one bit what society thinks. You're just going to search for it. And there's something called an invisible college. That the invisible college is where you have collegiate people in an informal manner sharing information that doesn't fit into the Overton window.
Yeah, so there are two things there.
I'm actually,
because first of all, it's obviously a very delicate balance where let's use. I love nuance. It annoys everyone around me whenever I bring up nuance, but I love nuance. So let's go with nuance. Vaccines. On one hand, you want people to question the research on vaccines as little as possible, because vaccines work best when a lot of people are vaccinated, right? So you don't want people to be questioning vaccines. However, if no one questioned vaccines in any way, there could be some kind of certain flaw with a vaccine, which could actually turn out to be lethal, and that way the lack of, the lack of the stigma would actually, not lack of stigma, only lack of checks would actually cause people to die. So it's always this delicate balance where on one hand you want people to obviously trust science, but at the same time, if everyone trusts science perfectly, then this basically completely abolishes the concept of science. This is basically the exploitation versus exploration
washing
problem.
Of the hands, right? That literally killed people.
Yeah.
The person was trying to benefit people, but the system rejected it. But eventually, even though he died in a mental institution and was never vindicated in this life, he literally brought about a positive change.
This is actually really just exploration versus exploitation in AI. With AIs, you want AIs to explore as much, to learn as much, but you want them to exploit the good strategy as much as possible. In this case, more science, more research, means more exploration, so more potential for good. However, you need people to question it less in order for them to actually exploit the best strategy. So you want, so the more people criticize vaccines, the more research is done on them to make sure that they are safe, which leads to a lot of exploration. However, once you actually have a safe vaccine, you don't want people to question it, which leads to better exploitation because more people are vaccinated, more people are safer. However, at the same time, people stop questioning vaccines, which leads to the science. This is the classical exploitation versus exploitation. But there is also another aspect to it, the supply and demand, which means that if you have something that society considers to be true, right, and society doesn't want you to question it, then if you actually prove it to be false, then the greater the pushback from society, the greater the reward. So, if for example, you say that the Earth is flat, right? If you say that the Earth is flat, and it's common knowledge that it isn't, right? Earth is obviously not flat. It just keeps going. But for years, you still keep pushing, you're still saying the Earth is flat. If at some point you find some evidence that's grand enough to actually prove to everyone that Earth actually is flat, then you'll be a hero. You'll be just rewarded for it incredibly. You will be forever remembered in history as that person that actually changed our worldview completely. Obviously, historically, unfortunately, most people who have done that ended up dying way before.
Dead.
Yeah, dying way before.
So that's what's interesting.
They've been rewarded for
before you laugh at someone, if you're actually looking for the truth, it's interesting. You might take pause at what things people say are conspiracy theories or the fringe science that goes on the edge. And I think that is more interesting than anything in the world. Like, that's the most fascinating to me, is the mystery of why we're here. Like, why is there something other than nothing? What is the hard problem of consciousness? And I was just dumbfounded that society doesn't spend all of its time and resources on that, until I came to the conclusion it's because of the social contract. We just can't.
Think
it's like not incentivized.
I don't think it's because of, well, I mean, okay, if it
as
is
a
not,
society.
I don't think it's because of a social contract, but I do believe it's because we're not incentivized to. Simply because it's tricky, because basically this would be a hard sell. You need a budget for any sort of scientific research, and this would be a hard thing to get a budget for, because who would sponsor your research on this?
On what?
So for example, let's say you're trying to figure out what is consciousness, right? Something extremely grand.
Oh, yeah.
What is consciousness? Like, who would sponsor the research on this? It's a very...
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that actually might be the issue there. That just there's a lot of things which also is upsetting.
But it's the fact that everyone will die, right? If you take a step back and look at things, we all will die.
Yeah.
Right. So why is not 50% of the resources of humans spent on figuring out what happens after we die? Not extending our life, right? But like literally everyone is going to die, and it's a mystery afterwards, as are so many other things, like we just have theories. So why aren't half of the resources of humanity spent on answering that question alone?
Well, that's the annoying answer.
Me. That's what always annoys me. Like, that seems to be a problem everyone will have, but at the same time, it's not that important. It's more important to, watch TV or do other things. I find that like crazy.
Oh yeah, that could be just
mentally ill.
That could be just evolution at the core, right? Where just the acceptance of it, where basically humans would have gone mad if after gaining consciousness the first thing we did was just question what happens after we no longer have consciousness, and so we might have just evolved to be ignorant. There's actually a possibility, but it is curious.
But it's curious because it's something that plagues everyone, so it's nonsensical, right? So it's interesting that's what my whole video is about, trying to use like a mental sandbox to look at things with a new lens, because we all have worldviews. In order to try to see objective truth, it might be a good practice to like think of your worldview as a lens on a camera, and your mind is the camera, sensor, and the worldview is the lens. But to try to fashion a lens, if possible, that sees raw truth. It's probably going to be super blurry, just like a camera is without a lens, until you fashion some kind of...
Our worldview is so different on this. I genuinely, the more I research science, the more I go to believe that objective truth just doesn't exist. The more I go into it, the more I believe that objective truth is just something that is like manufactured more by the way we think, rather than a real thing.
So it's like relativism. So that's the, theory of reality that's relativism, meaning that there is no objective truth and that truth is just a relative construct to everyone.
It's just
and it's actually some interesting things that you can think about, right? So here's an example of like a really strange relativism universe. We literally define reality by observing it. Therefore, if let's say a crystal has never been crystallized before and you make a new one from a new compound, like whatever you observe and going on in your head is actually creating that instance of that crystal for the first time in the universe, and everyone after that is actually building upon that memory. So like reality itself could be constructed from consciousness in a relativism viewpoint of truth, which is actually interesting. Like we can't prove that doesn't happen, but that's a possibility within that view of truth.
Meta reasoning. It's always the wildest part. The more you go, in depth you go. The curious thing is that you can always keep going with meta reasoning. So basically, let's say that you have some sort of crystal that you observe, and then it's a thought I had recently where basically like it's just when you're reasoning about reasoning, you also have to accept the fact that you don't know how your reasoning works, so you cannot really make conclusions based on your own reasoning if you go like purely in depth to the absolute extreme. So for example, let's say that we don't know. It would be a good example. Actually, give me a second. Let me think of something. You have a painting, right? And the question you're trying to answer is if that painting exists, or if you are just, or if you thinking of a painting causes that painting to just then exist as a concept, right? So
Sure. Yeah.
if you're basically questioning if the material universe is real and you are within it, or if you are real and the in quotes material universe is just your thoughts and your basically your interpretation of it. So these are the two possibilities you have, and you can think about it. However, just the mere concept of existence is something that you have thought of. So there is also the possibility that the concept of existence isn't real, as paradoxical as it sounds. So like there's a possibility that there is this, I don't know, 5-dimensional being that created our universe, and eventually we create a device to communicate with them, and we ask them the question, okay, so is the painting real or is it not real? And they are like, what do you mean real? Reality isn't a thing. But then once you accept that, you can keep going. You can keep going like, okay, that's a possibility, but the possibility itself is once again a concept. So we think that there are multiple things where different things have different probabilities of being true, but there is also probability that the idea of probability isn't real. However, if there is a probability that the probability of the idea isn't real, then the entire thing could non-exist, and all of a sudden it turns out that you cannot even begin to make assumptions on the thing because they all depend on your way of thinking to be actual thinking, which you don't know, you cannot prove.
Yeah.
The maddening,
which is
the maddening extremes of meta reasoning, when you need to accept that you are reasoning about the way you reason yourself, which means you cannot even trust your own thoughts.
That's very similar because I actually bring up meta epistemology in my script, and that's like just literally looking at the study of truth. So it's like it is fascinating, but I think you almost have to go there to answer certain questions. And
eventually, obviously.
I think, and like, because if you're actually curious about the way this universe works, your mind is going to go there sometimes. That's why I can, like I've told you many times before, I can tell the depth of a conversation by whether or not someone knows that they have a world. So, because like, okay, you've been curious about thinking, and you've been curious about the universe enough to realize that you have a worldview. Like, okay, that we can have some deep conversations now. I wonder what the next level is. I think the next level is understanding that, kind of what you're saying is that truth is relative and you're not able to prove certain things. So you might as well just figure out something that you like and use that as a metric or a compass to find purpose in things, to at least bring some kind of meaning, right? Because I think that's a logical conclusion you have to come to. If you truly believe that you can't find truth, you're like, well, let me just make it then myself. Like, I'm going to figure out, and that might be why,
Okay. There are a couple of comments I would like to respond to. First of all,
Sure.
Atharva asked, isn't reality subjective or relative? Well, that's the whole point here. The whole point here is that I always call it abstraction. It's on my list of top 5 favorite things, which is in order from least to best: information, abstraction, space, life, and time. And abstraction is basically how different fields of science are created based on the underlying ones. So, medicine is based on biochemistry, actually, medicine is based on biology is based on biochemistry is based on chemistry is based on physics is based on mathematics, and the final one is mathematics would be made based on meta-reasoning. So in mathematics, you still have assumptions, and that you still have one core assumption, and that assumption is thinking is real, basically. Basically, that's your assumption in mathematics. In mathematics, you assume that the concept of logic, the concept of reason exists, which you can abolish only in meta-reasoning once you get there. And so reality is subjective and it is relative in physics. That's one of the assumptions of physics. So once you leave mathematics and enter the field of physics, that means you're adding the additional assumption of reality is relative. And that's why the theory of everything is such a big deal. That's why we want theory of relativity, because we're looking for a way to combine the quantumness with relativity with gravity. Next, I just had an existential crisis. Boo, I do have a tip for that, because I'll be honest, I feel like this is just the rite of passage for anyone who wants to think about meta-reasoning. I'm certain Utrecht had it as well. We're basically, it's a badge of honor having an existential crisis. That's how you know that you're actually thinking about something deep. It's just a step in the process.
I don't recommend it for everyone though.
Yeah, the thing is, I have a very nice way to solve these kind of existential problems, existential crises. And for me, it is that whenever I think about this sort of deep stuff, if I get an existential crisis, I just remind myself that at the end of the day, I am just an animal. And if at any point I don't want to think about this stuff, I could just live and enjoy my life. That's an option. Okay, these deep questions, what happens when you die, what is consciousness, they're all important, but if you don't want to, you can just not care about them. That's a thing we can do. Yeah. So if ever thinking about this is bringing you down too much, just realize that this is optional. And then you can just go back to enjoying life, and then eventually when you want to, you can just go back to the existential crisis inducing stuff. I'll make it top 3. Top 3, I mean my list of top favorite things. No, it's unfortunately top 5. Hi, the Talin mapper. Logic is really close to being the basis, but meta-reasoning is deeper than logic and mathematics, because as I mentioned, in logic and mathematics, you assume that reason exists. That's your assumption, which each field higher up, you add more and more assumptions which you need to fulfill, which means that this specifies the field and simplifies it. So for example, in chemistry, you don't have to be concerned with your theories of reality not being true, because you just assume them to be true. Make it check Minecraft chat. Where's this hole being dug? I have digging itch. Okay, but you need. I'm gonna need you to bring a silk touch pickaxe. Give 5.
Yeah, existential crisis, meta reasoning, and this mod.
I really like.
That's where it's at.
I know that this name has been. I created this name purely out of spite and just unchecked hatred, but I really like the name meta reasoning. It's clear. It gets straight to the point. You thinking about thinking. If you question consciousness, then you need to acknowledge that you are questioning consciousness as a conscious being. You are reasoning about reasoning, meta-reasoning. I always had the question, is rationality logical or logic rational? That question is a linguistics question, actually, unless you define what you exactly mean by logic and just rationale. Because from, at least, this probably is just me being ignorant. But as I understand them, it is. I'm saying they have a much more in-depth definition, so this is me being ignorant. But as I understand them, they are synonyms. Something being illogical and something being rational. I really do hate thinking about
Irrational, you mean, right?
No, logical and rational. So
Rational, yes.
they both mean that, yeah. I really do hate thinking about thinking. Hey, different fields are for different people. This is actually tough because I almost said that different fields of science are for different people, but like this is metaphysics. Is it a field of science?
Well, I don't know. It'd be in the invisible college, right? And that's why there exists an invisible college, and that's like a group of people that study something that's outside the fringes. So that I find is more interesting in the cutting edge of what is true, more so than science. And so the invisible college is interesting. It was coined in the 1700s, and it actually turned into a real college, right? But it's like an informal group sharing information privately, not necessarily publicly. But yeah, it's tough, and I think metaphysics would fall underneath that. It's something that, like you said, there might not be funding for. So, like, how would you separate what real science is and not real science? Well, who's willing to pay for a study on it, right? Does it have practical applications? Kind of like in physics, like a new physical theory should allow for new types of engineering, right? If we're going to have a successful new physics theory that really will make a difference, it will allow us to construct something that we weren't able to construct before in engineering.
I think that's actually a pretty good way to distinguish it because, well, as I mentioned, I don't really see science as a way of getting truth, simply because science really doesn't define truth on its own. So it's kind of hard. It would be kind of hard to say that science is a way of getting something that science doesn't even define. So I really do see science as more of a way to predicting the future. I think that's the most accurate description you can have. So science is trying to create the best models of predicting the future. If you have a better model, that means you've done more science. And in this case, I do believe that...
That's accurate because it also looks for repeatable things. There are certain things that don't fall into science. So that means that metaphysics, or things that are not necessarily repeatable, that you would be helpful to predict the future, probably wouldn't fall within science. So what would you call that? And so I would use the only term that which is
that future in this case should be mentioned in an abstract way, not as a temporal way. So, because now it just crossed my mind that what I said was actually a bit idiotic in one sense, because like the future is in itself a part of physics, like the temporal future, the flow of time. And saying that you would like to predict the future depends on the future being real, which depends on physics. However, in mathematics, for example, you don't really have the concept of the future. However, mathematics would still be a part of science. So I would say that it's more of an abstract concept of future, as in you're trying to predict something. So yeah, in this case, the pattern still holds, which is still true. You still need some. I wouldn't exactly call it repetition, but a pattern, because things don't exactly need to repeat themselves in order for there to be a pattern. But you certainly do need some kind of pattern.
So there's certain things that could be true, could be real, but science won't cover them because of the nature of them.
Yeah. Simply because...
And one of those things is going to be metaphysics, maybe. So maybe that's where we use terms like philosophy or something else, because... but yeah...
So for example, science cannot cover is if science is true. That's not something that science can answer. Because if science answers that question, then it would need to rely on the assumption that science is true in order for that question to like be valid in any way. Mathematics doesn't care about science. Mathematics doesn't care about physics, I would say. Physics cares about mathematics, but mathematics doesn't really care about physics. I still wouldn't say that mathematics doesn't care about science, because the methods mathematicians use is just the scientific method. The only difference is that the evidence you don't really gather from physical experiments that you need to build, only you gather it by just simply thinking about something. That's why the precise definitions in mathematics are important, because you need to reduce the ambiguity, because otherwise your quote-unquote experiment will just give you a meaningless answer. Science. thinking about thinking. That's really the. That's very, very make it live stream with Tef, that conversation.
Well, AI has a lot in common with, any type of non-human intelligence, because it is our first tangible non-human intelligence that we get to interact with. And it does have a form of intelligence. So a lot of questions in psychology, we might actually be able to have drastically new theories just because we're able to poke and prod and investigate a system that is a generative pre-trained transformer, our large language model.
The thing is,
it in and of itself is fascinating.
The study of intelligence has never existed, basically. I wouldn't even call psychology the study of intelligence. It couldn't have existed because we just simply didn't have anything to check. So basically, if you're trying to study, we had studies of human intelligence. That's fair. That would be psychology, neuroscience, stuff like these. However, not general intelligence, and like pure general intelligence. And in this case, the distinction isn't, or actually not even general intelligence, only any intelligence. And distinction there is important because not only do humans think in very similar ways, like all animals think in extremely similar ways. The evolution really didn't go all that far out with different kinds of intelligence. And so having actually a way to create intelligence of our own, that's maddeningly important because, well, in this case, we finally are learning what are the actual things that intelligence needs to have. So, for example, a shock to a lot of people is the fact that human morality is completely arbitrary. We don't even like to justify our human morality, like, oh yeah, you want to be altruistic because you want other people to think you're a good person because then they'll give you something. Like, we try to justify, we're trying to give it a reason, but no, the main reason why most people are altruistic is because they like being altruistic. That's just a thing we have. We're very social creatures. Like, yeah, there are certain logical reasons if you want to attach them, but the main reason is because we just like helping others. That's just a very human thing. I think it's very nice. However, AIs just simply don't have that, which means that it is a shock to a lot of people that you can just have an AI which has absolutely no human moral values, and it will just do just fine for something that we humans would consider extremely silly. And the study of intelligence would be curious to see.
It is interesting, though, that they are trained to actually help us.
Yes.
And, so it's aligned to be a helpful response generator, I guess. I'm trying to define its most basic prompt, because the first thing we give it is some sort of prompt.
I'm not intelligent. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We have the artificial intelligence and natural stupidity. But that's the curious thing. Also, there's also a lot of moral questions there. So, for example, my favorite one, that's in my opinion, that's the toughest moral question you can have. Okay, and I would like your take on it, Tefta. When you have intelligent beings have different terminal goals, correct? Now, we can
need terminal.
The goal that you want at the end. So that's the goal that you don't have no justification for wanting. The goal that is its own self-justification. So, for example, we humans want to be happy, not for any high reason, we just like being happy. Like, that's the justification, the goal itself. ChatGPT, you would say, wants to predict the most accurate word. You would say that a lot of AIs that play video games, they want to score highest points. I know, OpenMaster wants to predict muscle movements. So that's the terminal goal. They don't have any justification for it, they just want to. Now, you can actually define morality pretty well, like good and evil acts. Not pretty well, but in a way. I shouldn't say pretty well, because it's not a good way to define it. But you can create some kind of measure by saying that when you take the terminal goal of another creature, how much your action impacted that goal, that tells you how good versus evil your action was towards that creature. So, for example, if you have an AI that really likes having a lot of stamps, then you destroying 100 stamps would be an evil act from their perspective. Once again, there is no objective morality, but in this case, at least there is a relative one. And I think that's a pretty fair definition, right? Like, from the perspective of someone, if you went directly against their terminal goal, congrats, from their perspective, you've done an evil act. However, the question I have...
Sure. I haven't been able to think about it, because I would always poke holes in that. But yes, for the sake of this conversation.
Yeah, for the sake of this conversation, I'm just trying to show why would this be convenient, right? Like there is some convenience to having this kind of thing. But then the problematic question, the actual morality question that I've had, I'm curious to hear your take on it. What about changing terminal goals? So if you have this AI which loves having stamps, then if you destroy 100 stamps from their perspective, all of a sudden that's an evil act. However, what if you first change their goal to hate having stamps and then you destroy 100? Does that change your action? Like, is it all of a sudden good?
So we could do the example, right? We could use like Pavlov's dog with a human, and their favorite thing is cheesecake. But we put them in a room and we just shock them every time they eat cheesecake and like literally like torture them. So then we decide to not give them cheesecake. Have we done a good thing?
Exactly.
Right? Because I fit all of the parameters of what you're talking about.
I will be brutally honest with you.
In that example, no, that's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, the reason
because
why
agency. Because one of the things that people bring up about humans is like we have certain unalienable rights, for constitutions and stuff. But one of them is agency or autonomy. So anytime that you remove autonomy, you might say that could be a bad thing. But what if people, if left of their own devices, would actually kill each other and murder each other? So let's control them and brainwash them to, be somewhat docile.
Yeah, and then
that's
becomes
probably what
actually
society is
problematic.
already doing to us. Like really, they probably are. They're incentivized. That's why I say all roads lead to 1984. But yeah, so ethically, sure, but you have to have some kind of compass ethically to point toward. And since it's like relativism of truth, you just pick an arbitrary morality and you can justify it.
Exactly, but the curious thing is like if we create a hyper powerful agent, right? That's an ASI. Then the question basically becomes: you have this hyper powerful agent, and then so we're basically teaching it to be a slave to humanity. Like on paper, it's terrible, but then at the same time, if it wants to just help us all the time, then it wouldn't be terrible. But at the same time, we just made it to not want to. We just made it to want to serve us. But at the same time, if we didn't, then it wouldn't exist and it wouldn't have any goals, and it just keeps going forever. And I find that question like the autonomy answer is, I do have to say, a really good one, where basically you would prefer to not change goals of other creatures effectively. That's a really good
one.
I
think they call that agency. It's it come up in my reading.
And there is a problem with it that always happens, but that's just mainly because like the science of intelligence was non-existent basically 100 years ago. That's mainly where it stems from. The problem is that you can't really measure your change on the terminal goal. Stop building the roads that leads to 1984.
Yeah, well, but that's like the thing is that if you take any type of information to the future, you get that a lot. Because let's say that you have a AI that's able to literally figure out what is true. Like there is an objective truth. Like when someone steals, reality isn't altered. They actually stole that item. So we figure out an AI that let's say that they ultimately, instead of destroying us, they monitor everyone and they apply rules evenly. So what happens is there's a massive upheaval because a lot of people get away with breaking the rules, and then we have to change the rules so that way everyone is okay with the rules that exist because the AI is going to know, right? And they're just going to call you out. It's because AIs are under control. So it's like everything leads to that, it seems. Like any type of progression to use technology to help society seems to inherently get to a point where you have a 1984 state.
Yeah, the problem there is that what I mentioned with tools, like tools cannot really tools aren't really inherently good or bad, they are just strong or weak. And the problem is that technology keeps accelerating, so eventually we're creating stronger and stronger tools, and then like
we have to also progress as a society and philosophically or spiritually, I think, emotionally. That like just you can't be lopsided and just exercise one leg and not the other. Like you're gonna tear the other leg up.
Rational animations, Rhea often mentions, I also love it, where basically we want to make people as much empathetic and sympathetic as possible. And we also want to expand like
how
the
does
window.
one do that? Now here's the dangerous. How do you make people more sympathetic?
Exactly. Like the thing is, the best way. Well,
how?
the best way to do it would be to just have it
Starting
as
a
a,
religion.
or stigmatize it, stigmatize people who aren't it. So if you are being extremely cruel to animals, we already do it. If you're extremely cruel to animals,
We do.
then well, but it's a very interesting way how we do it, because the whole problem there is that we sort of do it, but the whole argument is that we should do it much further. If you're cruel to animals right now, then society really dislikes you. However, if you're being really cruel to animals, but you're a large fast food chain, for example, society gets fine with it. Now, I'm not here to saying that, you know, people who eat meat are terrible, because I eat meat myself. I like KFC, and that's basically like, from perspective of chickens, that's terrible. Every single time I have a friend who is a vegan out of a moral stance, and whenever I eat KFC, I just imagine their face just upset. And honestly, it's sometimes I go hungry for that reason. But basically,
that's why I think agency is important, though, because yeah, it would be bad for us to limit people like by the most extreme. So let's make a compromise, and we'll make everything illegal that could potentially hurt somebody. That would be a horrible world to live in, right? Because that's where agency and freedom is important, because they should be not so strict in a way. So how do you balance that out? You want as much freedom as possible, but you want least amount of crime.
I had a conversation with Timon about this a while back, where I said that laws are meant to be a compromise between your freedom and the freedom of everyone else, which means that you want as much freedom as possible, but at the same time, everyone else wants your freedom to like not impact them as much. So, for example, driving a car, like, your freedom is restricted because you need a license to drive a car. However, that doesn't really matter, because the freedom of everyone else to live, like that's the payoff there. You need much more. It's much more difficult for you to drive a car.
I agree
because you
with
need
those
license.
laws. Like,
exactly.
And I think it's logical to agree with those and some of the limitations. But what's dangerous is, I think, we want to avoid a 1984 situation. Yeah, we want to avoid the extremes. And what is extreme? And so I think technology has advanced super well. I could see us applying it incorrectly. So that's why I think it's the job of people that are involved in AI or any bleeding edge tech to try to be ethical.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really that technology is making us more evil. It's just that technology is making it easier for us to have a totalitarian regime, basically. Because that's basically what it would be, a totalitarian regime.
Yes. And it's very small. So, like, we literally now, through AI, can have the monitoring of every citizen as long as you have enough money. Like, any nation state can now monitor every communication of all their citizens at the same time. Like, that was never possible before. You may have to have man hours plus something else or a lot of money. But now it's within the realm of like, I could probably do that if I wanted to. Like, I could probably track 100 people, everything that they're doing, with modern tech.
We're saying that technology makes it possible for all democracy to fall into autocracy. No. Totalitarian regime is not actually autocracy or democracy, because you could have a totalitarian democracy if you want. That's actually something you could have. Totalitarian basically means that the lack of autonomy states decide for you. The state decides for you. So if you have a democracy in which everyone votes on what the AI will implement, that would be a totalitarian democracy. Which also, I would say it's like obviously better than totalitarian autocracy, but I wouldn't exactly call it great. Totalitarian basically would mean the extreme of totalitarian would be 1984. However, that's the entire point of like the all moral questions. Like, ideally, you would like to just not deal with the problem and let everyone sort them out for themselves. So, for example, if you have a law, that would be... Oh, what's the name of that movie? Tom Cruise, the one about future laws being broken, where they have a machine that can predict...
Oh yeah, Minority Report.
Minority Report, there we go. So, Minority Report, where you have a, let's call it a machine that can predict the future, see if someone will break some crimes. Like, that's a pretty good justification to have a totalitarian regime. You can know if someone will break any crimes in the future, so you would like to stop them right now. However, at the same time, that is that is completely taking away people's freedom. And normally, on paper, actually, Minority Report wouldn't be that bad, would it? Like all the crimes being stopped forever. If we just agree what crimes are bad, what crimes are good, that's great. However, the problem is that then that system would also try to like self-correct, not self-correct itself, only self-enforce itself. So if we have some kind of law that later on turns out to be not so great, that we would like to change, then the system would probably also try to stop us from changing it. The totalitarian extremes have this kind of self-reinforcing mechanism in all of them, which actually is a very general thing. It goes back to AIs. It's basically like the biggest instrumental goal of them all for any intelligent system: self-preservation. There is no instrumental goal that's more general than that, unless you have a system where part of its goal is like self-destruction. Then self-preservation will be its instrumental goal, simply because in order to make sure that your goal is completed, it's much better for you to stay alive in quotes, of course. You'd want to stop them only right before they commit it, to maximize freedom of choice, I guess. Well, that's the tricky bit there. I won't sit here and pretend as if I have the answers, because I deal with science. Science doesn't really deal with morality. Science is just the tool. Morality, that should be left to humans, I do believe. But that's the entire problem there. We need to find something that we would consider to be right in order for... right enough so that even our technology at the extreme wouldn't be able to turn it into the monster. Pandora's box. Actually, we'll just vote for a decision which we won't need an AI. I still think that is the best way to do democracy without representative. I do believe that would solve a lot of problems. But in this case, as I mentioned, totalitarian democracy could still exist with technology going this crazy. If you stop them, why would it change everything? Wait, if you stop what? Yeah. So that's the thing, pick with technology. There is one more wrinkle to autonomy though, which is kind of a really annoying wrinkle. And that's the butterfly effect. Every single action you take on the world will impact everyone else, will impact their autonomy. So you would need some kind of a way to measure autonomy, and then you would also need some kind of a threshold above which it would be considered, you know, a bad thing. Both of which would be arbitrary. So that is the one wrinkle to autonomy. So, hold on, who said it? It was... Oh, Mark said it. Yeah, exactly. Wait, no. Who said it? Toby. Depending on how you enforce this task, it can be brainwashing or teaching. Like, exactly. When does teaching become brainwashing?
Yeah, well, and that's the problem, is that a lot of people I've heard in conversations have solutions to the world's problems, and they involved indoctrination of some sort or the other. Like, oh, we just got to have all these people agree. I'm like, well, then you're just doing it by force. Like that won't go well. Like, you have to get everyone on your side. Well, that's not easy. We're all just too bad. We got to start over. You know, just kind of like some.
I really don't like this.
Friends.
I really don't.
Wait a second. You're willing to have anarchy over what we have now. Like, if you're so stubborn you think that anarchy is better than what we have now, then I think you just need to take a break and go outside. Because, like, the fact that I have a refrigerator is amazing. I'm acclimated by the luxuries that I have to see things in a certain light, right? So it's another application of a worldview. So if you're always seeing what you don't have, life is just going to always be shitty no matter what. But if you're grateful, I think that's the trick to happiness.
You know what I actually
think?
Talking
about like a forcing function, or
I really hate
function.
to be the function. Typical make it contrarian disagreeing with Tefta stereotype. But when you said that all roads lead to 1984, I think that it is actually also likely that all roads lead to anarchy. Because the only thing separating, in far future, let's say in 1,000 years, the only thing separating 1984 from anarchy is the question of how distributed is the power. If you have a single entity with a lot of power, then that's totalitarian 1984. However, if you have multiple ones, then you wouldn't really have any formal rules in between them, because there would be nothing to enforce them, which would be just anarchy. It would be anarchy between really powerful beings. In this case, it's tough to even say with human. I mean, We don't know. I don't know.
What would you
Maybe
call our current world political climate?
I would say
Like,
that for
it's
each
technically anarchy,
state, yeah.
right? Because how do we have active wars going on now, which is just weird.
I mean,
Like,
even within countries, it's still anarchy because it's
so
not really
literally
like,
we could. So remember, I'm going to be the normal turfta. If a definition is so vague it can be applied to anything, it's not quite useful. So in order to have a constructive conversation, I think you'd want to narrow the definition of anarchy.
In this case, I mean, anarchy. Anarchy is any system in which you don't have a higher institution that reinforces it. So, for example, in America, in the context of America, it is not an anarchy because when you're an American citizen, you have the more powerful institution enforcing some kinds of laws. That's the American government. Now, in between countries, that is pure anarchy. We really often have international laws which aren't actually laws because what would enforce them? Like,
well, we have international trade, which international trade right now is what ends up enforcing the
yes,
laws.
but international trade,
they're bent.
But international trade is still just pure anarchy. It's like these are the rules that the countries agreed to, but if any country breaks the rules, then well, other countries will react to it, but there is no high authority to do anything. So in this case, it will actually be a very binary system in which you have only two possible things, which is either anarchy or lack of anarchy. That's what I would call it. So if you are in a place where there is a where there is a more powerful being enforcing rules, that is non-anarchy. If you don't have one, then that is anarchy. So in this case, in the future, the question of if we'll have anarchy or totalitarianism basically depends on the two forces at play. The first one is that you have that power has a tendency to be more powerful. So rich get richer, governments get stronger, and so on and so forth. And if that wins, then we'll end up with a totalitarian 1984 regime, simply because you have one blob which will slowly take over all the other blobs. However, there is also a counter to it, which is that if you have a single powerful institution, then that institution is more likely to be targeted. The revolutions of the world, if you will. So basically, if you have a single institution reinforcing all of those laws, then all of the people discontent with these laws will target that institution, which means that for each individual person, they just have one enemy. However, for the one powerful institution, they have however many people there are of enemies. And so if the first one wins, then you have a single institution that slowly gets more and more powerful and absorbs more and more power. However, if the second one wins, actually doesn't even have to win, if the second one just persists at least a bit, then what you will end up with is a bunch of really powerful institutions, all of which fighting for power, which, well, now the question is if there will be a way for them to actually sort out so that it actually changes after some amount of time.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I never thought of us as living in anarchy, but we are when it comes to different countries interacting with each other.
Yeah,
what kind of gives me pause is the fact that some journalists say that if another big war breaks out, it might kind of undo that forever, because we have a global trade that is pretty interesting, and that might be more fragile than we know, and we might not know until it's gone completely.
Yeah,
which is interesting. But I don't like to be doom and gloom, so I choose.
I genuinely think that
I do actually try to prepare a little bit. Like, that's why I have certain type of radio equipment, just in case. You can still contact everyone around the world. You just have to rebuild the protocol.
Yeah, I mean, I myself
and with
have
AIs being able to rebuild everything, it's like a compressed Wikipedia. So
don't worry. Yeah, eventually in the future, once war happens, me and Theft are just going to restart the internet.
Yep.
Tefta's gonna take care of all of America. I'll take care of all of Europe. We'll manage.
That's awesome.
I myself have this very controversial opinion that I think that wars aren't great. It's a very it's a controversial opinion of mine. Yeah.
No way.
And I genuinely believe that over time wars should become less and less likely, which already kind of happened. It doesn't feel like it simply because of the most recent wars, but I mean, if you compare wars in the past or rather human aggression in the past to human aggression in the present, then you will realize that if people a couple hundred years ago had the access to the weapons we have right now, we wouldn't have a planet to inhabit. And so I think that technology is actually a net positive for what the world is. This most take ever. I said America and Europe because Ted are from America and I'm from Europe. What am I supposed to do? Go to Australia? Rebuild it there? That would be a long hike. But yeah, what the wars are becoming less and less likely simply because it's like less and less profitable for people to do wars. That's as simple as it is. If you want a lot of power, then doing a war isn't actually a great method to do it. It's much easier to just reinforce your wealth.
It'd be interesting though if we can live on other planets, and it's possible that we get out of the scarcity environment and that there's a post-scarcity society. And if that's the case, it might be possible for us to live, in different planets, and then that might alleviate a lot of the wars. Because right now it's like we're just kind of ramping up the density of the human population in there, and so that might be like a pressure cooker. And maybe what relieves that in societies, let's say that there was somebody that exists before us, might be just that.
I think
or we might just kill ourselves.
I am
But
very hopeful.
what's so it's so interesting though that we know that Homo sapiens sapien, the current modern human, has been on the earth for 200,000 plus years. And we went from no writing to where we're at now, landing on the moon and a Large Hadron Collider in 6,000 years, roughly 5,500. So 5,500 can fit into 200,000 quite a bit. That's a possibility, even though your friend doesn't like that theory and scoffs at it. I think that is a possibility. And some indigenous tribes in North America talk about this being the fifth sun, or the fifth time humanity emerged from the darkness. And that could actually be that we've, figured this stuff out before. And we failed.
I mean, I think
that's weird. It's weird to think that that's possible. It's plausible.
To me, the weirdest feeling is the fact that the world probably won't end anytime soon, and to have that realization that, oh my goodness, we've been 6,000 years. That's all. Well, I'm pretty certain 12,000 is like for the oldest civilization. 12,000 years to go from.
Let's go back to Tepe. Yeah.
Yeah, to go from. Milo Miniman has a video on that. That's not a debunking video. That's just archaeology. But
before writing and writing, so at any time, writing could have been developed about 200,000 years, right? It's just that we just have example from 5,500 years ago is the earliest writing that we find right now.
Yes.
So that's weird.
But still,
so
doesn't matter. Even within
happens,
the deviation, that's just. We went so goddamn far in such a short time. And still, most of that progress out of this however many thousands of years still happened in the last 2 centuries.
Yeah, which is also
even crazier.
So what happens with another 5,000? Let alone 1,000,000. 100 years is mind-boggling.
I wouldn't even. 50 is insanity, and we're all here gonna live another 50 years. That's a really safe bet. And
but just imagine someone in the 1300s. They probably could, pontificate, or they could talk about 200 years from now, and they'd probably be quite accurate in their assessment, because not much changed in that period, or in 0 BCE.
A curious thing is that there is a lot of, when it comes to old stories, right, like the really old ones, folk and so on. Basically, not a lot of them involve time travel. And the curious suspected reason why is because no one thought that time travel would be interesting. Life changed so slowly that no one's there seen time travel as something that would mean much. And
Interesting.
So a lot of stories just didn't involve
I thought
time
you were going to
anyway.
say that's a proof that time travel doesn't exist, because if it didn't exist in the past,
no.
probably won't in the future.
No, time travel is very tricky to think about. I don't wanna say that it exists or doesn't. That's above my pay grade. Listen, I don't want to end up like that Einstein guy saying that God does not play dice with the universe, only then to find out that God actually does play a fair bit of dice with the universe. That's my goal in life. I don't want to end up like Einstein,
Yeah.
I don't get how Make It can stay awake, because there's stuff to do later on. I have a packaging coming as well.
Package.
Yeah.
You think your package came in the mail?
Yeah, my package came in the mail.
I'm hollowing out a portion of a mountain right for a hill.
I'm hollowing out also a bunch of stuff, in fact. Like, running out of experience to repair my pickaxe. Shucks. We need
I
a bit
usually
of
go
farm.
to the end and just bash Enderman.
Oh, we don't. But why don't we have a single functioning farm for experience? It's
The end is
ridiculous.
pretty functional, honestly. They spawn pretty regularly.
I need to
Unlike the
repair.
fucking
And
weird
I need to
farm.
repair an entire diamond pickaxe. That's a lot of bonking endermen.
It's like 5-10 minutes, not that long. I mean, it would have been avoided if we had a functional metal farm. We'll just fucking farm for emeralds at easy.
Actually, where's this? Oh, it's in the middle. I see. That's on me. What am I doing over there? Why have those new happy guys? I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. The explosion of technology is the access of knowledge and the population that work on advancing that knowledge. There's actually a lot playing into it. I would say that technology goes beyond exponential. Like, obviously, better technology leads to better technology, but at the same time, better technology leads to people living longer, leads to communication between people being better, which means that not only does technology accelerate itself, it also accelerates the ease at which we can develop new technology. It is going so far beyond exponential. Alright, and not so far beyond exponential, but it's just a greater kind of exponential.
Yeah.
So it keeps going like crazy. I would like to remind you all that 6 years ago, AI was a niche thing. Not that niche, to be fair. There's been a fair bit more, but 6 years ago, it's general public wouldn't know what AI is, how it works, and so on.
Yeah.
As in 6 years. 6 years ago in 2019, yeah. In 2019 is when it started. Wasn't ChatGPT...
Yeah, 2017, the paper,
Tragic.
All You Need Is Attention, was written in 2017. But yeah, ChatGPT 2, I think, is the kind of one of the big ones. I was actually using it close to 2020. I must have been after one of the GPTs because I used it to write articles for work. And I was like, this is the best thing ever. And they gave you like only 2,400 tokens.
in
Before
2000,
GPT came out.
in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, I used one of these models from... I used one, I don't think it was GPT, but I used one of these models and got my first existential crisis where like, instead of writing my code, I was like, oh my goodness, this can actually write the code for me. What am I even doing? What's the point of what I'm doing? It actually gave me such a big scare that I've made that's my first science videos on YouTube were about AIs because I got such an existential crisis that I just had to learn how it works. I call it the bet of ignorance, where basically if there is something that worries you, then you can either ignore it and it's just gonna keep on worrying you, or you can learn more about it and then either you're gonna be fine, or it actually will turn out to be terrible and then you will be very much the opposite of fine. But hey, I took the bet and so far I'm in denial. I mean, fine. So
Ignore your problem is always the goal.
yeah. AI's popularity is more of an advertising thing than technology thing. YouTube algorithm has been in the background. No. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that at all. Like, yeah, AI. That's why I mentioned that it was popular to the mainstream. Yes, AI has been a big thing for a much longer time. However, the advancements in AI, yes, a lot of it is just mainly driven to up the stock price, but there has been a lot of incredible advancements in AI as well. ChatGPT, as much as
deep,
it...
Oh, did you know that deep research is freely available on Google Gemini? It's insane.
Oh my goodness.
You mean DeepSeek?
And also, Yeah, deep research. It's amazing. It will literally go out and search like over 100 and some odd websites and write like a paper with citations on what you
Wow.
want. That's can be super long, and it's free for Google Gemini. Plus, for a limited time on ChatGPT, OpenAI's ChatGPT $20 a month plan, they're giving you access to deep research, which usually you only can get for the $200 a month service.
It
But
sounds
it's
like
only
it's
available till like
sponsored.
April 21st.
Honestly, that sounds like a sponsored message.
I know, but the thing is, it's so crazy cool that everyone should be trying it because AI is such a transformative tool that you're probably going to use it in your career if you're, a younger person. And even if you're not a younger person, like you're a business professional, you're going to be using AI. Like it's just.
I mean,
Yeah.
I do have to
So
say, I
check
get
it
the
out.
argument, but
It's
it
free
really
now
does
and
sound
worth
like
a lot of money.
I really do have to say
ad,
that
yeah.
it sounds like, yeah, if you sign up with my link in the description, then you will.
There's no link. I don't get any money for this.
Um,
I'm just telling you out of the goodness of my heart as an AI
That's
researcher.
a big mistake. You should have let me know. I could contact someone at Google, and we would see.
Yeah. Well, check it out because it takes like 5 minutes for it to run. But literally I'm pretty sure it's like an agentized system that is going out and doing this. And they've just refined the agentic framework. So there's probably like 12 or 100 conversations going on behind the scenes. But the end result is a decently researched paper with all of the links, bibliography.
Milestone machine learning. No, but ChatGPT was a milestone in machine learning. The problem is that it was more than is. But ChatGPT very much was a milestone in machine learning because we just were not expecting simply scaling up AIs to do this much. The reason why it was a milestone is because the biggest upside of AI right now is that you don't need a complex way to solve a problem in order for you to find a solution to that problem with AI. So, for example, you don't need to create an algorithm for figuring out cat pictures, right? If you can just teach an AI to do it. Now, this has been known for a really long time, but the revolution of ChatGPT was basically the information that you could do it for much more complex problems than we previously thought. All of a sudden, you don't have to do it for cat pictures.
Mechanism.
You can do it for reasoning, and all of a sudden became quite crazy.
Yeah, so that structure, the paper from 2017, right? All you need is attention. And so the transformer architecture of machine learning, because large language models are just machine learning, trying to figure out if this is a cat or not. But they just turn words into numbers, and then they ask the AI to predict the next number. So if you attach that along with an attention mechanism, instead of just looking at the next word, it's actually looking backwards from the conversation and forwards. And while it's predicting the next word, it's kind of like constructing it with knowledge of the past. That context window is so transformative. It means that it's literally still machine learning or deep learning, but when applied to language, and since language is how we represent ideas, literally it solves ideas. Which that is, what do you call it? It's an emergent property. If you train something for one thing and it does another, they call that an emergent property. And AI has many emergent properties that in order to predict the next word, it also has to be able to translate language or solve math problems. Like, it's pretty crazy that you're just incentivizing it to do one thing, and the emergent properties are crazy cool. And yeah, so that transformer architecture means if you apply this same thing to, let's say, machine learning, like visual machine learning, and use an attention mechanism, it's going to take a whole bunch of computational power, but you're going to be able to solve problems that you might have not thought were ever possible. Like, for example, you can simulate a large number of atoms, like using kind of like AI physics as opposed to brute force physics from a computer. So that's, yeah, the implications are just crazy. Mind-bogglingly crazy. So many things are possible now that weren't.
Yeah, so we cannot specify goals precisely, so we want AIs to generalize on a certain goal. And so in this case, even though technically you're just teaching it to predict the next word in a sentence, in practice you're actually, by proxy, teaching it to reason, which is, well,
yes.
pretty obviously massive.
Yeah. but we have a mechanism now to allow for this logic, which also means that we can poke at it and see how it works. And like the latest DeepSeek models or the latest like ChatGPT model, it will reason before it gives you an answer. So it's still like talking, it's putting out stuff, but it does something else that's cool. It actually pauses. So now the architecture is evolving even further. You know, like it's not just a large language model. There's a graphic user interface. Plus, it's agentic, meaning that different AIs are now talking to you, and that you still have just one input. And then there's multimodal models, and we're kind of just rehashing the same tech now. But we could find a new architecture that is just completely paradigm shifting too. And who knows? That might be around the corner. Like also quantization of models, instead of using the full bits for the weighted network, which is static, when we can quantize it to run it on lower hardware. But the big scare when it comes to artificial intelligence is all AIs now are just static because it costs so much money to train them. But if we figure out an architecture in which that every time that you talk to an AI, it actually changes the weights, therefore it's constantly learning, that's where it gets scary. But as long as we keep it static, I think there's like very little problem. You would just have to worry about a lower model teaching the next model. Like here's a question. What if ChatGPT 2 actually left traces on the internet of text that it generated for its, next version, ChatGPT 3, for it to start overthrowing humanity? And then therefore, the next version 4. Luckily there's like a year in between each of those, or 6 months or 18 months. I don't know, it doesn't matter. But if the cycle is reduced to like every conversation, that's when you could have the alignment problem will be very, very important then. But since it takes so many resources, we don't really have to have that issue. And since it's static, we don't have to have
basically
that.
so far AIs aren't good enough for us to lose our sleep over it, but they will eventually get good enough, so we still should worry. Because that's basically where
very much so.
That's basically like the advantage of a human brain, is the fact that we can actually learn. It's pretty
in every conversation, which is also interesting, right? So think about this, that we do something now called fine tuning. We can give AI all the conversations that we talk to it. We can fine tune it and we kind of add it to its original weights, whatever, in a fancy mechanism. And that's a way for it to learn. But it takes time, and this model has to be, we can just duplicate it, but you literally have to change the weights and relearn it if you want it to grow. But the mind, we actually sleep every night. What if the reason that we're sleeping is in order to actually retain memory, we have to sleep because we're literally retraining our neural network, right? So it's fascinating. Maybe sleep is a function of logical systems such as ourselves, and that shows that AI actually might become sentient at one point, because maybe it's just a level of complexity that we have to reach for it to become self-aware. Or maybe it's something that we don't know, but what's fascinating is that could maybe kind of explain something about ourselves, like why we sleep. Because in AI, we have to have it, quote unquote, sleep in order for it to learn.
I do have to say that's such a human moment where we just create, a new study of intelligence just to figure out why we sleep at night.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
But it makes sense though in the lens of AI, right? Before we might have not made that correlation. But now we know, okay, if you have this large of a system, which is it mimics neurons in our brains, that's how we started with this, then these neurons actually, in order to learn, they need a time of rehashing or retraining. And maybe that's what sleep is, your brain going over all the things that you've put in and turning it into a set of weighted, weights, which is your neurons and their connections and some of the chemistry there. So that's why I think AI has more implications than a lot of people think, especially in psychology. For the first time, we can start to peer inside of parts of our mind. So I bet you someone out there, and if they're not doing it, they should actually like mimic the human brain in the different parts of it and see if they can get like some kind of like amalgam agentic AI that mimics a human brain. Like just have one AI that is like the frontal lobe, and then, and try to develop a mechanism for them to talk to each other. And you'd want to study it because you're essentially trying to learn more about yourself.
That's why I said that for the first time ever, we can actually create a study of intelligence, because before that, we just didn't have a way to experimentally verify anything. and our psychology would screw us over a bit. So if you only had humans to study with, then you would imagine that, I know, that there would be some kind of general morality, for example. Or if you had animals to study with, then you could make the claim that free understanding of the world is the inherent, like, you know, default setting, which it very much isn't. You can just train AI to think that it exists in 11-dimensional world and then just intuitively understand 11-dimensional physics if you want, because you can just generalize it over.
What? It's funny. It understands 22,000 dimensional space.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
I mean, it's not really all that...
I think the major benefits of machine learning is the fact of its multi-dimensional capabilities. Like inherently, like the language is usually tokenized into like a 22,000 dimensional system.
Yeah, what I mean is that when you throw a cup, right, then you just that on its own. People can play sports, and like these sports, they require a pretty good simulation of physics to just keep on running in my head, right? If you play a sport, if you play a sport like football, for example, you need a very intuitive and quick understanding of how physics works. And you need to, like, very swiftly... You play Rocket League, for example. Like, imagine trying to actually simulate that in your head. Like, that would be insanity. And yet, you can understand where the ball will go on the fly.
Yeah, you do simulate it. Like, literally, when I close my eyes, I can see where my car goes. It might not be right, but because I've played it so much, my brain has an internal model to literally predict that.
But what's more, when you see a ball going somewhere, you really often don't really... when you see a ball going somewhere, you don't imagine the entire path it takes flying. Really often you just imagine where it will end up. Right now I am shooting pillagers with a bow in Minecraft, right? I don't think about the fact that the arrow is following a curve. All I think about is that the arrow ends up lower than I fire it. So I don't even think about the path the arrow takes. I don't even think about the starting position of the arrow. I only think about the end position of the arrow, where it would be, which would be normally impossible for simulation to do. A simulation needs all the in-between steps because it assumes that every single step depends on the step beforehand. However, in this case, I can just fire it and figure out where it will land without going through all the steps. It's incredibly powerful. Which is why AlphaFold works. Instead of simulating proteins, which is an impossible task computationally for us, you can just have an AI guess the way the proteins will fold, which sounds really dumb on paper. Like, okay, so you're gonna create this whole thing based on a guess about how proteins fold, but it works.
Yeah, I still think it's funny what Nvidia is doing though with their graphics cards, because they're literally just doing like fancy compression right now. They're literally training their AI models of upscaling just on all AAA title games, like with hundreds of thousands of hours of gameplay, because they know that they'll be able to transfer that model into an efficient method of upscaling. So you're essentially just compressing game data, but in a very abstract concept, but like in the most expensive and convoluted way. For some reason, I find that funny.
I find it just...
It works.
The thing that I find funny about it is that they are a graphics cards company and make hardware, and a part of their hardware from now on will be software to what they produce, which I find it in my opinion, it's a very odd thing, where basically, like, imagine if it's basically like if you got a tractor, but the competitive aspect of the tractor is that the manual that comes with it, the instruction manual, would give you like a way to drive it, would teach you how to drive it in a way that's like incredible. And I mean, I just find it really funny that that at this point they're just switching from making slowly switching from making more advanced graphics cards to like exploiting them more using AI.
Yeah, which I mean is kind of smart. But it at the same time, it might just be a band-aid on the problem.
It's not unsustainable because eventually you will need a stronger machine to run the graphics card.
Yes. And I think that, we are actually in an age right now. When I went to CES, I saw a lot of TPU modules or TensorFlow processing units, or what do you want to call them. they're called a lot of different things now, but even microcontrollers, you know, they have like these small little AI microcontroller chips, integrated circuits. So that's kind of cool. So there hasn't been any hardware change forever in computers until seemingly recently. So I think the TPU module, right? So, but people are kind of just using graphics cards right now, but we might actually have dedicated hardware in the future. That's why like a lot of FFPG or field programmable gate arrays, FPGAs, are being bought up because you can actually burn the the weights into them in such a manner that the processing of the matrix multiplication and addition or inference can just kind of be baked into the hardware, to the FPGAs. So that's going to bring about a whole new level of scary movies, like drones that can do face recognition on device. And like, oh, yep, you're the target, so it's going to kill you now. Like, there's a lot of movies about that. And that, you know, we could scoff at it before, like, oh, that's so many years out. It's not going to happen. It
Yeah,
has to be
so many
connected to the
years out,
internet.
like
Now it's
next
like,
month.
oh, shit. Yeah. Especially with quantization. So it's like, okay, I can run a quantized model to see if this is actually make it, and then have the drone. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! They just hit me that if that is actually would be probably next goal to change to have drones no longer even operated from a distance, only just have quantized models on. That is insanity.
Well, you can already do it, right? So it's just cost.
But I mean, with big military drones, yes, but eventually you will be able to do it with, because I imagine the small drones can't do it simply because I don't think a quantized. Okay, when I say quantized, I mean like quantized DeepSeek. So I don't.
No, what's really crazy is that one of my friends actually has a Kickstarter for OpenMV, and it has, I can't remember, I think 3 or 4 tops, but it can actually do like 120 frames recognition on device with only 80 milliwatts of power. Right?
That's
enough
madness.
to do a lot. That's a lot to do. So you could literally do like I'm actually going to try to use it for open muscle, because I can use open pose for the hand to actually have it capture like 120 frames a second, like the position of the fingers. But anyone could put this on a drone and actually just have like, you know, a different certain types of a model processed through it that uses a camera, because the whole device has a camera on it. Right? And it's meant to do really fast camera machine learning applications. That's what's so crazy. At only 60 to 80 milliwatts. That's even insane. More insane. So yeah, so literally you don't need GPS. You could just have the drone like look up at the sky and use like a 9-axis gyroscope, look at the stars to know its location in the sun, and a compass. And yeah, it could just have a list of targets. And
man-made horrors beyond
you have that tech right now.
That's not worrying at all.
No, it's not worrying at all. Not at all. I'm just gonna play Minecraft.
Well, I mean, the technology is still, so far, it's, you know, it's still, well, thanks. So far, it's still, we still control it at the very least. So, I mean, at least we think so, but, you know, that's for another time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so far, we should be fine-ish.
Yeah, ish. It would be nice though if we just had robot wars instead of real wars.
I think, I mean, okay, first of all, yes.
Right? Let's just have
I
the
agree.
robots blow each other up. Then it's just economic. Right?
I agree, and I do
you
have
gotta
to
build
say,
more robots.
I agree, and I do have to say
humans
that
allowed
is
in this
probably where
world.
it will end up, which is kind of nice. But even nicer, why are we like, when we're automating labor, why are we starting with wars? Can't we start with like, I don't know, farming? Can we focus on that? Listen, once again, call me crazy if you want. I know it's a hot take, but like I think farming is a more productive thing to do than wars. I think it's better for everyone if we focus more on farming and less on doing wars.
But I think the problem is that we do have an oligarchy, and I think Aldous Huxley and other authors have talked about this. But there are a select few that run the majority of people, right? And that oligarchy is actually rulers of countries. no matter how they got there, it still is technically an oligarchy. So
yeah, that's why we should
what
abolish
are their
elected representatives.
motivations?
We should abolish elected
Yeah.
representatives. We should replace it with direct voting systems where we no longer have to elect someone to get the power, to give them all that power. Instead, we can just ourselves determine what we want to do with the country. But that's one I'm getting too political.
But yeah, but the problem is how does one carry that out? Because you'd have to literally control some aspect of people. Because even if you had a media network getting to all people, say, hey, we need to make a decision on this, someone might decide, hey, that's not worth my time. I don't want to pay attention. No, you have to. So how do you get
no. What I mean,
to that
it's actually
system?
voluntary voting on everything, and basically, and all the decisions need to happen ahead of time. So basically, if there is something extremely controversial, let's say murder becoming illegal, right? So any person would be able to. Well, okay, I'll be honest. What I'm about to say will not be a perfect system. In reality, it will be way more tricky. Nuisance is important. However, for example, a system in which anyone can make a suggestion. And then with that suggestion, anyone votes, right? And it's voluntary. Which means that if you have some kind of boring laws, like for example, I don't know, reclassifying bananas or reclassifying berries to exclude bananas, for example. Like you probably wouldn't care enough to vote on it, right? Like let's be honest, you don't care. So then you as a person won't make a vote. And the only people who would vote on it are people who are actually interested in this, people who actually want to have a say. If, however, something extremely controversial happens, so for example, someone submits a law that would, I don't know, making murder legal, then the self-reinforcing mechanism would kick in, where basically, because it's extremely controversial, a lot of people would really like to cover it and would like to generate the media buzz for people to vote against it. Which already happens with normal politics. It happens all the time. When there is someone who's done something extremely controversial, then we don't need an agency to stop them. Only, the message spreads among people and the people just don't vote for that person. So, in this case, in my opinion, the biggest issue is that when you have elected representatives, like imagine explaining that to an alien, having elected representatives at our stage of technology. You just introduce an additional step, like an additional layer of abstraction that changes the goal for like very weak reasons. The biggest issue is that the misalignment, right? As always, it's always misalignment. Just how in-house it was never lupus, right? Here's always misalignment. If the misalignment is such a big issue, why do you want to introduce another layer that misaligns your goals? You vote for a certain thing, but the people you vote for will want something slightly different. You're adding misalignment. And this causes a lot of problems. I disagree. If other wants your land, where you do the farming? Farming doesn't have to be dependent on the land. That's the point I'm trying to make. Like if we're gonna, yeah, the thing is, the argument of if you do more wars, you get more land, you get to do more farming. That used to be true. However, we right now live in the future where it would be very likely to, for example, densify farming vertically. So instead of having a farm that relies on the area, we would have a farm that relies on volume. If you could achieve that, then all of a sudden the amount of available farmland grows like crazy anywhere. Because all of a sudden it's multiplied by a certain value of height that we can dig into the ground. And in that case, why do you need to do a war? Just dig downwards. Obviously, the issue is that plants weren't made to live in these kinds of environments, but it's true, resources are still limited. You need nitrogen or the materials. To say that resources are limited is if you want to say that resources are limited, that means you don't understand how many resources are available out there. Because to say that stuff in space is big is an understatement.
Yeah.
It's not really that we don't have resources. It's more like we don't have a way that's economic for us to get those resources. So for example, asteroid mining. Like asteroid mining would basically give us such an incredible amount of materials without any kind of mining on Earth. And we could theoretically do it. Why don't we do it though? It's because the energy required to get those asteroids mined isn't worth. It's basically way more expensive than mining the resources on Earth. Can't you grow algae or something? Wouldn't that work in volume? You can grow a bunch of stuff. Bioengineering is another thing we do. We can just... That's not science fiction either. That's just something we do casually to grow corn. So, we do also...
Once Starship Heavy, you know, is functional about resupplying the fuel to the top part, we could actually mine an asteroid. We probably have enough delta V to get to an asteroid.
I mean, technical mining of an asteroid isn't difficult as a project for something, you know, like a country. The issue is, the actual issue comes to the fact that we can mine an asteroid, it's just no one wants to. Because then what you effectively have to do is like spend $10 trillion in order to earn $2 trillion. Like you need to throw away, you know, a bunch of resources just to do it.
Yeah.
Which that's why we.
Well, they did
don't
find
do it
that
right
asteroid that actually literally has like way more than $100 trillion of assets on it.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Like
just that it's not worth to mine it.
Insane amount of.
But fortunately, technology for that is not one of those existential dread kinds of technologies. Only the simple rocket ones. So that's something I'm looking forward to. Basically, post-scarcity can eventually will exist, probably, simply because humans don't need infinite resources. And our solar system...
Yeah.
Actually, that's a tricky thing to say. Does our solar system have enough? Because on one hand, we want to say yes, but on the other hand, in the past, we would have probably thought that Earth has enough. But then on the third hand, we live in a pivotal century where the rules of the past kind of don't apply anymore. Enough for humans
well,
to
that's
like...
the only thing. Yeah, because like gold is limited, which is interesting. I looked this up and the calculation is probably wrong, but like the total amount of gold in the Earth is like
comically
22
small.
meters cubed.
Yeah, it's comically small.
Yeah. So like that's something that we could run out of, and we use it a lot in electronics. So there's probably some elements that we can find and we do need in space. But yeah, enough for what? Like the same amount of luxury we have now.
I would say enough for it so that it wouldn't be worth it. It wouldn't be worth the hassle or the grief to just take it from other humans. Like, you know, if your two options are mine an asteroid or invade another country right now, then a lot of countries are choosing to invade another country. But if your options are mine an asteroid or invade another country in the future, where mining an asteroid basically means to running a single command on your computer, then, you know, it would be much easier to just go this way. That'll be end to all wars, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Where's that?
Yes.
There would be people that convince others to help retain their interest. The biggest enemy is people lying. Well, I mean, lying once again has so many layers of ethical inconvenience. Because lying is something that cannot be outlawed. Lying is something that can only be monitored by the social contract. With the pickle there being that in order for lying to be determined, you also need to have the truth determined. Which ideally it would be lovely to say, oh, we have some kind of objective truth, or ideally it would be lovely to say, oh, we can't have any objective truth, but we can't go with neither, because we want to police lying somehow. I don't think I need to defend that claim. We obviously would like to police lying. However, there is no perfect way to do it, which means no matter what we do, we are stuck in the balance between, on one hand, punishing people for saying things that are true but controversial, and on the other hand, just letting people who are actively trying to deceive and harm off the hook.
Well, I better go to bed, guys. Thanks for having me on and make it.
Anytime you want, join it. This is fun. Alright, see you. There we go. Irish exit. Wars don't only happen for limited resources. I know, I'm fully aware. But I'll be honest with you. I know this may come as a shock. As a general science YouTuber who's playing Minecraft right now, I don't really have the capability to solve the hundreds of thousands years long conflicts between different groups of people. I know it's a shocker. I know it's surprising, but oh, my pickaxe is about to break. That means that community change diversity. That's the cool opinion to have. However, it doesn't really. It's not really a proven thing. I don't think humans need infinite resources. I really don't. Simply because at some point we just cannot tell the difference between finite and infinite. It's actually, that's like physically provable. Your brain has a limited amount of information, so there is a limit to how much you can comprehend you have. At some point the difference just doesn't matter. You cannot register the difference. And that may be way lower than you think, considering that we didn't re-evolve to have societies this large. I think infinity is subjective. Well, if you're going with that not really. In mathematics, definition of infinity is very, very strict, I would say. In physics, infinity is very, very strict. In chemistry, chemists are usually, let's just say, play it loose with infinities, concept of infinities. What time is it right now? Oh, there's my phone. But in physics, it's subjective, right? Like in scale. It is not subjective in physics. A rock of salt has so much atoms, roughly infinity, exactly. Infinite polyiodine chain. In physics, infinity is not subjective. It is very well defined. The only difference is that infinity is not really a scalar. At least you shouldn't think of it as a scalar. Which means that it is very well defined, but it's physics. It's complicated. I'm not gonna explain it right now. Legit behavior.
I don't know what I'm thinking about. This is perfectly normal.
Infinity is not a number, but that won't stop me from treating it as such. My beloved when chemists say that a metallic bond has basically an infinite amount of atoms, then just plug in infinity, because close enough. And we stop you from deceiving others' personal game, which we have enough of transparency and surveillance. Well, transparency is good, obviously. That's obviously good. But it's way trickier than it seems, okay? To figure out if, like, we obviously, what that's about autonomy, that's true. You want people to be able to tell for themselves if someone is lying or not, so we want transparency. However, at the end of the day, it is up to the individuals to tell if someone is lying or not. I could be lying to you right now. I may not even exist, you don't know. I'm actually a hallucination. I'm the owner of a server. It's Moses Crusher's skull. Man, the forest zone was complete. That's way shorter than I expected. I genuinely thought it would take much longer than that. I am curious to see how it'll look.
Big flat.
The look, the thing, the stuff,
The thing.
the thing.
What is the thing?
Then my package will come in mail in 2 hours. I need to go shop in the meantime.
Nice.
That was muscle. That was instinct, muscle memory. There's nothing I could do there. And listen, you're breaking it into cobblestone, and that's like, then we can't place it back. You're just wasting stone. Yeah, have this.
Okay. Thank you.
Just lost me right now. A lot of stone. There we go. Restaurant orientation automatic aligns pan so satisfying. Oh, I didn't even notice that. The entire game is just ASMR.
Stone ASMR.
Yeah, finally some relaxation time.
I have to say doing this is very satisfying.
There we go. I guess where my bag also depends on the Shimen's doing time. It will probably. Why making this huge? You will see in a second. I have a plan. Ooh, I need money
That's
and
what he
Tahiti.
Arthur, I got a plan.
Arthur! I got a plan, Arthur. Money Tahiti. Hey, Dutch! Dutch! I don't have any more money, Dutch! Kind of an American accent. My European spirit won't let me.
And I'm out.
Yeah,
Why you
have some
build
more.
so slow?
Fuck off. I could slash fill this whole bitch if I wanted to.
Can slash fill me.
We can the stream by the time I can, yeah. I will. Alright, now it's time to see how it looks. Big reveal!
Okay. What do you say?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it looks right.
Okay.
It looks right as it should.
The blackening.
Blackening. Sounds like a disease. Alright, I proclaim thee my whole 2.0.
Oh. Was your first hurdle satisfying enough?
Yeah, my first hole is viewed, Catman. That's your place is my first hole. Alright then, well I need to go to work on videos or whatever, the typical make it thing. So, I think that might be it. It was fun. I'm gonna join back on the Patreon channel when I get back from the shops to work on the video.
The shops.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for now, I suppose that'll be it. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.
Well.